Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. And as we begin the show, just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a soul realignment specialist, meditation master, and dimensional healer. Learn more, and there's merch also at EdenJustBe.com. Let's get this party started. So official. Here we go. Eden Just Be Spiritual Boom in association with the powerful, wonderful Grassroots Warrior Network. Brian Besco out of South Dakota, and I messed up our time today, with Twisted Sage. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here, Eden.
Oh, thank you. Okay, and for those who are new to the podcast, I'm going to talk a little bit, then read Brian's bio, and we're going to get into it. Yet, let me go ahead and state, there are lots of new energy products that are out there, frequency products. And Brian, this is not my niche. So at any time, feel free to correct me. So like Rife technology, scalar technology, all great. And I do energy frequency work in person. I am the tool, yet Brian's tools, and I say this with heart because I've watched a lot of Brian's videos before, meeting him officially today. I feel they're so, what's the word I want to use? So true, so real. And one of the things that really floored me was I work with smart meter guards as well. So I was watching one of Brian's videos that with the smart meter guard that I have, it basically stops, any of the harmful frequencies that are coming out. He has technology that transmutes that. So suddenly in my mind, like I'm very spiritual, all into this great awakening too. But even seeing that, knowing that it switched some stuff in my mind and my heart. So I am so, let me chill out for a second. I'm so excited to talk about that today. Okay, and it did give me a spiritual kick in the pants, which was wonderful. So today, potentially, we're going to talk about light, chambers, tensor rings, galactic assistance, golden fire, sacred geometry, all that good stuff. Okay, first, before I get into Ryan specifically, I just want to tell y'all two things. All right, so I'm wearing my galactic human shirt today, which I love, which my daughter did the little artwork, which is great. Have a TikTok channel now with my dear client and partner, Bailey. So we started the TikTok store, and she's going to start publishing more stuff about the Great Awakening and everything. So white.rabbit.33. However, I have to tell you guys this. One of our t-shirts says Epstein's List with gentle question mark. So for not saying anything negative, just to, for y'all to think about it, TikTok basically froze that product. So I think, Brian, what do you think about that?
I have no words for that. that opens up some cans of worms that are not in my reality matrix.
Very nice. All right. So yeah, it's interesting that Brian says that too, because a lot of our shirts are in the reality matrix. But it's neat to see the censorship, and we have some other shirts that could possibly be censored, which we're not. But I think that the AI bots just pick up on certain words. Finally, before we get to Brian, I went to the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, this past weekend to clear out some other dark energies. And I won't go into lots of details about that, but it was incredible, and it's so big. I was blown away. So I do. So Brian, so too, this is our podcast is audio and visual. So there may be some things that we describe that people can't see. So I am going to show this one picture. So if you're listening to this, I encourage you to watch it as well. So it was a portal from my perspective, and it showed all these mechanics when airplanes had just first started. and it was not so great. So switch that up. But it's really interesting. The guy on the left looks a whole bunch like Elon Musk. So see what you think. Okay, may I read your bio now? Am I
Please.
done?
Yay.
Okay. So Brian Besco and his family at Twisted Sage Studios create some of the most powerful, subtle energy and conscious expanding tools on the planet. Tensor technology is used to restructure water and remediate, I hope I said that right, discordant energies, including non beneficial EMF. The Twisted Sage Tensor tools also play a role in soul level evolution and personal growth and expansion. Brian teaches workshops to assess these higher levels of consciousness for embodied mastery in this lifetime. Ooh, it's nice stuff. Hey, welcome. Officially,
Thank you.
welcome.
Good to be here.
Okay, great to have you here. I like that even when you talk about Epstein's list, that in terms of our own evolution, we can really start evolving from the 3D world, the 4D world, the 5D world. And knowing that I've in terms of your talks and discussions, has it been probably at least 10 or I don't know how many years since you really started doing this work? How long has it been now?
Well, ironically, today I'm doing a YouTube live for our 14-year celebration.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so right after this, too.
Yep.
All right.
So 14 years in this lifetime, but I have been
Yes.
doing this for many lifetimes. I have come to found out over the past few years.
Can you explain your evolution into this realm?
Oh, certainly. So it started out with my sister doing some distance energy healing work on me, which totally blew the logical side of my brain. And then my sister was starting to channel an energy group called the Elders 3, and she brought through the symbol of the Triskele, which we call Hetica, the symbol of the water elemental or the spirit of water. And as we were getting that into the world, the gals who wrote the New Science of Water book, they had just written their first edition in 2010. And when we started to bring out that Hetica, they called us and said, "Well, all your channeled information backs our science and what this Triskele or Hetica does for water, root growth of plants." Um, the Triskele or Triskelion, which we call the Hetica, I wish I had one here with me today, but it's the three spirals, and that symbolizes earth, sky, and you, which we do a thing called the trinity breath, which is just bringing both those together. So the Hetica is a symbol of healing as well. So many people have remembrances of this being on the healing walls in Atlantis. It is what broke me open to feeling energy for the first time. So anyway, it was my sister Brenda bringing that through and the gals at Dancing with Water. Then they introduced me to Slim Sperling. Slim Sperling actually rediscovered tensor technology in the early 90s, 1991. He died in 2007. He had been sitting with these guys on their front porch every night when they came home from work. They called me up. They said, "We're scientists, but Slim has messages for you on how to make tensor rings." Well, I was like, "Oh, working with a dead guy, I'm not sure. I'm still sciency." But working with my sister and Slim, I have remembered that I've been creating these higher dimensional energy tools for lifetimes. And so it's not that we create tensor rings through the lifetimes, it's that we create the higher dimensional tools first, and then we bring them into the tensor rings through the sacred measurements and the tensor fields. Um, so the etheric templates is really the biggest thing with the tensor tools. But truly how I started out was being the master angelic warrior that I've been in many lifetimes. And to me, the Great Awakening was about the realizations of the dark and the light and all the dark and all these things. And then it's just been the past 3 years that I truly have stepped into the
Yes.
understanding of beyond duality,
Yes.
that the awakening is not just seeing the dark and the light. The awakening is the transcending of both.
Mm.
And that's really where we've gone for this past couple of years, is stepping out of the duality to step more into our own realization that everything is energy, it's here to serve us, and we can make clear, conscious choices as creators on how we wish our energy to serve us. And that's what we're going to do at the end of our talk here today, too, Eden, is I would love to offer a really wonderful exercise where you can go through and you can take anything that no longer brings you joy or does not serve you and release it. Pretty
So
phenomenal. Clear
great.
conscious choices are magic.
Okay. And I love you, Brian, talking about like for me, I have my company, Just Be, been doing what I would consider major spiritual work, if you want to call it, for 20 some odd years. But after like 2020, that's when I really, same thing, started, well, knowing that yours has been longer, but really starting to see the matrix and just woke up on a whole, or awakened on a whole different level. And also for me, the past 3 or 4 years, it's getting like every week something within me transforms, something transmutes, something more opens up, that it is so fast right now. And I'm going to put this intention out for the podcast too, that the podcast is now going to start to elevate even more. And I think Brian is really helping us kick that off today, because really it's so important, I believe, to really move out of fear and move away from this polarity, and knowing that we are powerful beings. I love you calling yourself that angelic warrior. I feel like that's what I am
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
Uh, so what was I do just want to go back into the past for just a second. What would you say the hardest thing was to get past as you were waking up?
Releasing identity. Holy smokes. That
Whoa.
was a rough and is still a little rough,
Yeah.
is releasing identity, because that is your box. That is your limitation. That is who you think you are. And once you release that, then you really start to understand who you are.
Okay, what'd you have to release specifically?
Oh, oh gosh. Um, releasing control is the biggest thing,
Yeah.
because truly to step into, you know, to really step forward in this new way, it is all about surrender. Now, surrender may not be the right word for some, but surrender to the soul. It is allowing. Allowing is the big key word here. And then with that, one of the hugest parts of getting through to the other side of things is the radical acceptance of what they are. But then you don't stop there. You don't be like, okay, this is the messed up
I'm done.
stuff. I accept, I see that, that's what it is. You do the and. This is true. And there are multiple other realities that are available. We call these higher potentials. Because when you are stuck in a box of limited potentials, you're in your fear, your pain body, you feel like you have very limited choices of places that you can go. You're in the box. But with the higher potentials, they all exist outside of this box. They are potentials that come from the soul. And so, as we release this box, which is your old traumas of lifetimes, your own experiences, your own perceptions based on all of that, once you release that, which is the identity, that is who you think you are and your limitations, you release all that identity and it opens up to higher potentials and creation. Um, to give you an example, what the highest potentials is really quick, my sister, humble country gal, if I talked about my sister Brenda here, and she's one that if I ever get a rib out, I can text her and I can feel her pushing my rib back into place, and she has not even read the text. She is so in tune with who she is, and some of the what she is a master healer. We all are. We are all masters here. And we've all been beautiful, wonderful beings throughout other lifetimes and this lifetime. But basically the releasing of Okay, so the highest potentials, going back to this. So she was running cows and she has a sliding chute. And
Okay, let's hold on for just a moment. So you're in
yes,
South Dakota.
yes.
An old show that they're like only 125 people there, or so it's small.
Yeah, in our town of Buffalo Gap, 123 people. We have one of the 13th Lakota sacred sites here that we built a huge medicine wheel out of rose quartz and other quartz on. There's a crystal city below there. There's rose quartz all over the place here, in the gravel roads and all that. So it's really a sacred space where we can actually have Twisted Sage Studios
Oh
as a
gosh.
container to create these higher dimensional tools.
Okay, I did not know that. Okay, because I was actually I said, Brian, I think I want to come out and visit you guys at some point. I don't know if that's going to be okay, but we'll talk about it later. Okay, so master healer, proceed. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, but the highest potentials, which is really what I wanted to share, is
Yes.
this whole concept because this is huge. So the highest potentials, one of the potentials that happened with my sister is she got her finger crushed in the sliding steel chute where a cow jumped in, totally crushed her finger. This bone was demolished. She stopped, and one of the biggest things that we have to do is we have to allow and accept what is in order to move past it.
Yes.
And so instead of fighting or trying to heal, she accepts that she's okay. This is what it is. I know it's going to be okay. She just went home, went to bed. She woke up the next morning. There's not a single fracture in this bone. And it's not that she healed it, like, pushing my rib back into place. She allowed that potential reality, and then other higher potentials come in. You could see this as other timelines. Maybe that's more logical for you to feel and understand, but it is simply potentials. When you are in a box, you have limited potentials of creation. As this box opens, you open to more, more of who and what you are. And that includes other potentials of creation, other realities. And to access those, again, you have to be okay with the one that is there right now, but yet being okay and knowing that there is so much more. There is this, and there is this, and there is this. And wherever you are at consciously, with the amount of consciousness and light that you hold, you can access these other potentials. And that's what I want to, at the end here, is to basically show you this exercise, give you this exercise to where you can take energy that's tied up as your soul in creation, bring it back. When you bring this experience back to soul, soul gives it back to you as wisdom, consciousness, light. So when we're doing these exercises, the deeper, darker dive you take in a creation and a lifetime and experience, the more light and wisdom your soul elicits from that experience when it comes to wisdom. And then as we keep bringing all of these experiences home, and some of these get stuck and caught within our field.
Mhm.
And if you don't mind, just keep going. If I can just keep going here, is that okay,
Yes,
Eden? All
please.
right. So one of these experiences or lifetimes showed up to me as I was getting on my motorcycle. And when I would sit on my motorcycle, I would see myself rolling across the highway and my 13-year-old daughter standing there mourning my death. This happened every day for 2 weeks. And I knew it was me. And I was like, well, no, this is not a premonition. I'm not playing these kinds of games here on this planet anymore. I finally called my sister, and she's like, oh, well, that is another lifetime, a trauma that is projecting its traumas into me. That was the very first time that I realized how much old traumas and lifetimes can affect us.
Mhm.
And since then, well, actually, I guess my daughter was probably 11 at the time, but since then, that is what we've been doing with helping to heal and release things is we become aware of it. And when we release that, everything comes back to balance. So, as energy healers, workers, the past 4 or 5 years, most things that we see with clients at physical, mental, emotional life situations, we're finding tied to old traumas and not just this lifetime. So when we use these exercises working with the soul and we allow these lifetimes to come back to wisdom, not only does everything that was affecting this reality here shift and change, but then it just opens up higher potentials because the more that we release our old box, our old those old things like the traumas, the hereditary, all this stuff. As we begin to release these old energetic structures, it frees us. And then we are able to expand. And as we bring more consciousness and light in, and that's the thing too, Eden, is that, as we started to do this work with the soul here about 10 years ago, we were seeing that the soul was changing. The soul actually becomes greater, grander, brighter, lighter as we take more of these experiences and we allow them to come back to soul. And again, it's not the human that does any of this stuff, but it's the human that can hold on to some of these things and not allow them to pass through with grace and ease. And then they get stuck in the body and sometimes manifest as all kinds of things, situations, ailments, physical, mental, emotional stuff. And so as you release those, then the body comes into a balance and you become a greater, brighter, grander being. Um, so to me, this is the culmination of perhaps 1,000 lifetimes of being here on the planet, in that right now is the time that we are releasing the lifetimes. Like when Jesus and Buddha and everybody and Tobias and all those guys, when they stepped into their realization, they took their body and they left. But as we are in this very special time and place, we are stepping into our realization, which is just realizing that everything is your energy and it is here to serve you. And it always has been serving you. But the realization is that you can allow energy to serve you in a new way. You are the master creator. And when you step into that realization and you bring all of your lifetimes with you, so that's it, is that the Akashic records or your lifetimes, it's not linear and it's not set in stone.
Yes.
So as we do the work, we are like the designated ascendee of all of our lifetimes. And as we're doing the work, it is changing those lifetimes because, my sister took me on a journey. We went back through, because I had all these things that were just bothering me, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I just
Yeah.
felt like I was crushed and, all this stuff. We took a journey and I went through and I did it the hard way. So I always do things the hard way. And then I create the tools and the pathways for others to do it easier if they choose. Um,
Beautiful. No,
Yep.
that's tough, but I get it. Yeah, same with me for some things. Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just doing things the hard way by going in and experiencing those lifetimes of me, being on battlefields, killing and dying, and all of that. But as you bring your light into those spaces and places, it changes that lifetime and that experience. And then those lifetimes come into wisdom. And so basically, so that's what differentiates an ascended master and an embodied master is that we are staying here and we are bringing all of our lifetimes to completion. And that is huge because this is the end of the great cycle. To me, this is truly the great awakening, not the awakening to understand that there's dark and light and atrocities in the world, but to understand that we are so much bigger and that this was just simply a playground for the experience. And that's it too, is that's the realization I've had is that the soul does not care. It does not judge your experience. You can you can be on either side of the spectrum. You can drive a bus off a cliff here, or else you can save a whole group of people here or whatever it is, just the opposite spectrums. But whatever it is that you do in life, perceive dark or light, the soul is always rejoicing at the experience. The soul does not judge dark and light. The soul is always rejoicing that you are, that I am. And then that experience, again, the darker dive you take in this universe of duality, the more light and wisdom you elicit from that experience. So that's pretty much my take on the Great Awakening and how I've moved from creating the powerful tools to clear entities. And, gosh, I've written about clearing all the church grids and the capital grids and all of the old grid systems that were basically, in one perception, I was the spiritual warrior. I felt like I was protecting humanity from all of this outside consciousness. Well, you cannot violate the free will of anybody. We all choose these experiences and allow these experiences. And so for all the years of fighting the dark, it shifted about in 2020, because in 2020 is also the time of a huge shift that occurred, because my sister Brenda, when she woke up in 1999, she had Metatron and Thoth just standing there. She's
So
like,
was she just going through a normal life and
yep.
suddenly, okay, because I want to ask about you guys being children, but I'm guessing it wasn't until this that she woke up and was like, what? Did she go, what the heck is this?
Yep. Who are
Oh
you
my
guys and what are you doing
gosh.
here?
Right. Okay. Wow.
Yep. And so it was 1999. And, and through that time, I got to ask, 20 questions about the Merkaba. So we created the crystalline Merkaba activation, super simple, easy to reactivate the Merkaba field. And, all these things working with Thoth and Metatron throughout the years. Because Metatron was like her right hand and Thoth was just always walking with her. But in, oh gosh. So in 2019, they started to step back. By
Mhm.
2020, Thoth and Metatron were no longer here. And then we also made this tool called the Wings of Talk, TOK, like TikTok. Talk is a master healer of the blues that exists in a universe outside of ours. He is no longer present in this tool. Talk also had to leave. And for me, my forte was clearing entities. As I would walk down the street, somebody would say something really off the wall to me. I'd turn and look. I could see it was an entity that was getting my attention. I would do the work by going into the heart space, connecting soul to soul with the person, the entity, help them separate so that they could go their own ways. By 2020, and I thought everybody on the planet had an entity attachment, because that was the work that we did and the tools that we created to clear entities and soul contracts and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and the healing chambers for clearing soul contracts and entities. And by 2020, gosh, I think we've only seen 4 or 5 entity attachments since then.
Good.
In most people that we see anymore that are having these entities, these big bad beings, we're finding that they are other lifetimes of them. And as they shun them away, no, you're a big bad dark being, they don't get to integrate back to soul. And they're just like the shadow being that's always around. And you're like, oh God, there's something outside of me. And no, it's really not. And even if it wasn't, the exercise we're going to do today, you just basically stand in your power, and whatever it is, you invite it in. Instead of fighting it, you bring it to you and it transcends. So even if it is an outside thing, it transcends when it comes into your light.
Okay, Brian, I want to ask you a personal question, if I may.
Yeah.
So my mentor here, she's great. So she has given me the task because I'm in Ohio of going to sacred sites as well as the Air Force Museum. Just with the sacred sites, it was to connect and open them up, which was amazing. And then
Mhm.
going to the Air Force Museum, it was just clearing, seeing things.
Yes.
So I wonder, like I'm sitting here listening to you talk that used to be your thing, it's kind of my thing, but it's different. Yeah, I'm just wondering if this is also part of my evolution. Even what would you say?
I totally would say that because I really, I've been trying to figure out this whole light workers thing because
Yeah.
I used to be a light worker and teaching the stuff. And then it's like, no, that's perpetuating duality. But yet there are still dense discordant energies
Mm.
in creation. And so I stopped teaching light anchoring for a little while because I was like, that's just doing the light work. It's the duality. But really, I've come to the understanding that it is a process, and as part of the awakening, we see the the dark and the light, the discordant. We start to see that, but then through that process, for me, it's been bringing them both together and just allowing them both, seeing them both as absolutely valid in creation, in duality creation that we're in, but not stopping there. Again, when you accept something, radical acceptance of whatever it is, especially yourself, that's the only way to self-love, radical acceptance of self. But radical acceptance of things that are perceived outside of you doesn't mean that you're like, okay, that's the way it is. Again, this is the and. You have the radical acceptance that, hey, there's these entities and they're doing things, and there's the humans that are totally empowered. And so once you can accept this reality creation, you can move past it. What we were doing for many years is we were fighting this reality creation and then it expands. And this is something that I realized doing the clearing work. Man, I was clearing all the time and for years. And then finally, it was this realization, hey, if you want to clear, you are creator and you are
Let's
always
do
going
it.
to have work to do to clear
Ah,
if you choose.
okay.
But there becomes a point where
Yeah.
you are allowing in your light, and your light just takes care of it all. You do not have to no longer participate or witness. That things just begin to shift and clear on their own by you embodying your light. Then you don't have to
Nice.
do a dang thing anymore.
Ah, oh, so great. And I wanted to ask you, thank you, Ryan,
Yeah.
about the grid system. Because again, this is not my point of
Mhm.
expertise. So I understand there are ley lines and cross points where energy can be harnessed and energy can also be manipulated.
Mhm.
Yet, getting back to some of the dark forces, knowing that we're talking about the polarity of that and leaving some of that, were some of those lines manipulated in the past? Because I know you've worked
Mhm.
on. Okay, explain that, would you?
So, yeah, one of the first things that we found was the church grid that so I started working with the dragons when I started First Wake Up in 2010. Started working with the dragons, and I've actually, that's one of my lifetimes, one of my soul aspects is a dragon. Many people that I meet that are resonating with dragons is because they are a dragon in one lifetime or experience. Um, but anyway, we found that there were dragons, an abnormal number of dragons on this planet that were harnessed against their free will because they're the ones that creates the grids. And so, you go back to the Chinese text, the dragons and the tiger lines. So the dragons that these dragons that create the grid systems. So they were harnessed against their free will, and they were in within their plane of existence. They were locked in the basements of the churches, all churches built before 1946, no matter the religion, because they created the grids. They were able to then, so in the churches, every priest, pastor, rabbi had an entity attachment. I had three entity attachments when I first started waking up. They would change your stance, speech,
Ooh,
mannerisms, thoughts. They affect it all. And my family would notice that my eyes and my speech and everything would change. And that's how we found these beings. And they were just old contracts. One of them I had for 150 some lifetimes, another 70 some lifetimes. Um, so we just released those contracts and released them. Um, and so that's actually all it was about, priests, pastor, rabbis, or medical industry or the political industry. There were always these entities that came in and influenced people. And again, at the time as a spiritual warrior, I was like, oh, you darn dirty beans, I'm going to boot you off the planet. And no, it really is a part of the duality experience. But anyway, so the church grids, so these grids, so I drove all around the Midwest because we have all these tiny churches and all these little Midwest towns, and I would go in and anchor a column of light, and we'd unchain the dragon, take it to where it needed to go, do the healing and clearing with it,
Oh, so
and
literally,
also
would you go in the church and sit
no, I would
or
just go
just go
sit
outside of it?
outside in the parking lot.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. And then one day I was like, man, there's got to be an easier way. And Brenda's like, well, let's just hijack the grid. So we took all the dragons and all the archangels that we worked with and all these other beings, and we just jumped onto the grid and we cleared the entire grid except for the Vatican. At the time, they would not let us clear the Vatican because it still needed to be there as duality for people to have their experiences and to awaken, basically. So,
Wow.
so yeah, we cleared those, and then we found the grid system that was connected to all the state capitals. And then like the church grids were connected to cemeteries, the state capitals were connected to all the county courthouses, all of your city, well, some city, county, state, national buildings. And once we found, yeah, long story, but yeah, we quit doing energy work for about a year because we stepped in and we were trying to do this from the brain, and we were like, oh yeah, and trying to fight it. And we got nailed and we quit doing energy work because our whole family's got nailed for about a year, me and my path partner. But then we came back and we had the understanding of being in the heart space. And when you are in the heart space and you are grounded, connected, you are untouchable.
Right.
You are out of fear. You are divine. You are untouchable. And so that's what we learned. We went back through and we cleared the rest of those grid systems. By 2015, Gaia sloughed off all the old non-beneficial grids. And we had actually created the Global Love and Gratitude grid in 2012 for all the waterways, water towers, all of your cell phone towers, all of your electrical. We created this grid called the Global Love and Gratitude Grid. And in 2015, Gaia took that on as one of the organic grids. And since then, I've also created the Ascension Grid, where we create the 60-degree pyramids. I lost 2 weeks of my life creating that grid system, came back, had all these pyramids. We had this grid system. Um, and so, yes, I definitely, and I've always done all the other clearing and connecting work, like I was in Serpent Mound here this last summer, and in your neck of the woods there,
Yeah.
and we did some
Yeah.
work there.
That was one of the places that I went to. Oh,
Yeah.
so neat. Okay. Oh gosh, I want to hear about your experience. If we can take that tangent for just a second.
Oh, and actually, by that time, I was only there present and just bringing my light, and I
Oh,
wasn't really trying to do grid work anymore. It's
yes.
just showing up and shining.
Oh, so
Um,
neat.
and that's it too, is I haven't been doing really any energy work the past few years,
Mhm.
at least 2 to 3 years, hardly any energy work, because again, it was stepping out of the paradigm
Yeah.
of trying to fight or heal something. It started out with his shoulder, that every time we would try to heal it or do something with it, it would get worse. And that was when we were first discovering the higher potentials. And basically, this was part of my process to understand that you don't fix, heal, or fight, that you allow
Yeah.
something and you allow in the higher potential to come into its place. And so this really is a huge new shift in the way that we do things as energy workers, healers, is not trying to fix or fight or heal. It is allowing it to shift into a higher creation, a higher potential. And that is simply what your light does. Your light without agendas, because your agendas creates the box. Your agendas create the limitation. And that's why I don't do mass meditations with people, is because when we all get together and somebody has an agenda, it just kind of screws up the whole thing, you know, versus us just holding a light of higher potentials. That is where the magic is. That is the beyond limitations, is just simply holding your light. that brings the potentials.
I so appreciate you being here with me today because this is really it. And this is what this podcast does for me too. It really helps me evolve. And apparently, I'm ready. So thank you so much for being here because I'm really connecting with everything you're saying and realizing, especially with the smart meter stuff. And I want to go into that for a moment.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to close my eyes for a second. Really, me personally, and you guys listening and watching, it is time in our world to continue to take steps, and big steps are needed right now. And I don't it's interesting to call them big steps because big steps, but just again allowance of the steps. Tell about and I'm going to go ahead and mention, by the time this is published in 2 weeks, I will be an affiliate for Brian's company, Twisted Sage, because I told Brian from the beginning and said this in the podcast. I do connect with your work. I do feel it is heart centered. I feel that it is so passionate and so great because we talked about too how many spiritual people there are out there and how much you have to discern, and a lot of, yeah, what was the term you used? I love that. Would you mind saying it again?
Machio, which means spiritual bullshit.
Yes. So I am so excited. I don't have any of Brian's tools yet, but I will get some, especially because I have a smart meter guard on my smart meter right now. And you have tools that basically, instead of blocking the energy, transmuting that, and then on your Wi-Fi as well. Can you go
Mhm.
into that product for just a second? And again,
Yeah.
this show is not about selling anything.
Right.
Yet when there is something that is helpful and amazing, good gracious, I'm going to talk about it. Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, the
Whew.
tensor rings are yeah, beyond magic. Okay, so this one is the smart
Okay,
meter.
can you explain it a little bit for those who can't see it?
Yeah, I sure can. So basically, the cell phone tab, which is this one right here, we've done extensive biofeedback studies that show when you put this on your phone, you carry your phone, it's aligning chakras, energy bodies, making them mental and emotional clear, and making organs function better when you have this tab and your phone on you. So I actually sleep with my phone at night, right next to my head, because I listen to meditations, and I'm
Yeah.
sensitive to energy.
So great because the other
So,
things are get your phone out of your room, put it on airplane
oh yeah.
mode. You got to get it away from you, the cell towers.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
I love
no.
it.
So actually the field of the phone is amplified. The field of the phone now becomes a harmonious, beneficial field because it's just a discordant field that causes issues with people. Um, so that's the cell phone tab, but it's the same with the electrical meter one, which you can place right on the electrical meter, or else we have the plug-in device so you can plug into any electrical outlet. And we also have on our YouTube, one of our distributors. She's a professional dowser, where she goes in and she dowses a business, and they show a negative on the dowsing scale, negative for their smart meter, and then she puts one of the rings, the discs, on to the local transformer, and it clears everybody in that whole area that's connected to that transformer. It takes that negative and puts it into a positive on that dowsing scale. Um, and so, like again with the cell phones, it's doing the same thing. Now, gosh, I had a realization too, working with my sister. I've only been in the room once when she fully embodied her light and I could hardly talk, but I did ask about EMF, and it gave me something that I had to stew on for about a year.
Ooh.
And that is basically the fact that EMFs aren't inherently bad. Electromagnetics is everywhere. Our heart is this big electromagnetic generator. And that if we stand in our light, grounded, centered, present, again, we are untouchable. We become a transformer for all these electromagnetics. We teach the Merkaba activation, how you can program that. It is an electromagnetic field. So truly, electromagnetics, we become the harmonizer of discordant field electromagnetics and all. But I call the tools training wheels. Sometimes we need the training wheels to know that it is possible to do this energy work, and then we can begin to do the energy work on our own. And so that's what I teach in the workshops, is how to access these fields, but then utilize the fields without using the tools like the different wands and all of that. And so we have all the, yeah, we have tons of videos that just teach about that.
Okay, because
But
I love that.
maybe we should jump into
Is it time?
the meditation.
Okay, yeah, and let me plug in there too that again, I really appreciate you saying you don't need the tools, but for some people, like for right now, the tools are really good, but
Gosh, yes.
you don't really need them. And about let me think if there's anything else I want to ask before we go into the practice. I don't think so. Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready, Brian.
Just be
Awesome.
practice.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to do a thing called the Trinity breath, where we move from the head into the heart. We see our consciousness as this little ball of light. It sits right behind the pineal gland. It looks out our physical eyes, sees the world separate. 3 breaths, we're going to move that into the heart space. So we're going to do the Trinity breath to move into the sacred space of the heart. And then from there, I'm going to give you this easy exercise, the soul altar, to release whatever you choose to no longer carry. So closing your eyes if you wish, putting your attention to your physical heart where we find your light, your soul's fire. Imagining connecting heart to heart with the earth and breathing in that light, that supporting energy of the earth up through the feet, into the heart, and just let that energy envelop the whole body as this beautiful hug of the earth into every cell, between every cell, grounding, releasing. Next, connecting with you as creator God, as soul, breathing in that light of you into the heart. The third breath in this Trinity breath is where we breathe together both earth and sky, both creation and the earth, bringing them together within you. They mix together with you within the heart, your lighting, your energy. And then those columns of light expand back to creation and back to earth. So you are the Trinity, grounded, connected, and in the heart space. This simple 3 breath technique is something to do anytime you need to make a decision in life. Go to the heart space. This is where you are divinely supported and where you step out of the field of influence of mass consciousness, of ancestors, of your own trauma's drama, going into the heart space. All right, so from the sacred space of the heart, we are going to do the soul altar exercise. Now imagine whatever it is in your world that no longer brings you joy. Maybe it's a specific situation, or maybe whatever it is energy. So maybe it's an ache or a pain. Um, Take whatever it is, knowing it is energy, and we're just going to bring it into a little ball, a little bundle. Now we're going to imagine while you're in the heart space, a altar to your soul. To me, it's just like this little pillar, like the little Greek pillars that you can set something on top of that's like 3 or 4 feet tall, whatever your altar to the soul is. And you simply take that bundle that you are complete with, that no longer brings you joy or no longer serves you, that situation, that energy. You sit it on that altar and you step away. This is a ceremony for the mind because you stepping away is you telling soul, hey, I am truly done with this. I wish to no longer have this in my experience. And I ask that this all comes to completion. And you don't have to say a word or have any intentions. Your soul always knows. So when you go into the heart space, you imagine taking this bundle of energy, handing it to soul, or setting it on the altar, however you want to do it. It is your intention. The soul knows your intention that you are setting this down, giving it to soul, and that you are ready to step away. And again, the stepping away is the big part of you saying, I am complete, I am done. And you can do this with everything. Become self-aware, self-aware of any of the negative talk, of the emotional reactions that you have to something outside of you. Stop in those instances, go into the heart space, take that emotional reaction or whatever that is, give it to soul, and allow it to be complete. And it will begin to shift out of your reality. Most of the times we forget what it even was that we released because it is just gone. If there is something that is still there afterwards, then it is still serving you or bringing you joy in some way. For me, I feel like I had joy in suffering. And so there was a lot of things that I tried to release, but there was a part of me that was still holding on to those things. So again, that's where you need to be clear with yourself that, hey, this no longer serves me. This no longer brings me joy. I am truly releasing this. And this is the first step in becoming a conscious creator is we uncreate creation, which no longer serves us and no longer brings us joy. This can be anything and everything because everything is consciousness and energy. Everything is your energy and everything has always been there serving you. So as you release something that is painful and dark and you have judgments with it, know that it was there for you. And so that's the radical acceptance of it, is that this was there for you and that you are going to receive all of the wisdom and light for your experience. And it is absolutely as simple as that. Make it your own, always be in the heart, and just a clear conscious choice. And you can do this with everything. You can do this with mass consciousness. You can do this with your ancestors. And you can do this with all lifetimes. So again, just be ultra aware of any of the self-talk or any of the emotional reactions that you have or situations that you are complete with. Be in the heart, take those as an energy bundle and hand it to soul. And it is that simple.
Shake my head a little bit. Okay, I'm watching the time, Brian, because I know you got something right after. You talking about, like, I put my things in a little bundle, and there was still a part of me that's just like you said, that was like, oh, this identity thing. And I've been working on my identity for years, releasing that, but some of this pain and suffering was still connected. So
Yeah.
for a minute there, I was like, dang gummit. So I will come back to this and do this several times because it is definitely a work in progress. And the one thing I
Yes.
wanted to bring up, so everybody knows, we're in this period of time where there's a lot of stuff going on that doesn't look all that pleasant. Yet underneath it all, just how Brian has talked about all the clearing that he has done, there is some amazing stuff right now. And so much of the darkness, or whatever you want to call it, has been transmuted, ended. So we are really, the time right now is great, even if it doesn't look
Yes,
that
it
way.
is.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So by the time this is published, I will have an affiliate link to Brian's product. So I will post that here. And talking to Brian, I will be able to offer some discounts through that occasionally.
Mhm.
And I so appreciate you being here today,
Mm.
sharing your light with everybody and your story. And I think it will also encourage others to move just like me. So thank you very much. Is there
Mm.
anything else
Thank
you want
you.
to add, or just say goodbye, or yeah, your call, because you got to go.
No, no, thank you all for being here. And yeah, I do encourage you to use these exercises and be
Amazing.
self-aware because to me, this is the easiest way
Yeah.
to shift out of the density and into you.
Thank you. All right, you. South Dakota.
Yes.
Love it.
Come
Okay.
visit us at Twisted Sage.
Okay. I probably will. All right. Bye, everybody. See you later, Brian. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Y'all, find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, True Social, as well as Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, plus a plethora of other audio directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So like, subscribe, do it all. See ya.